Do you like turn two kills, cheap thrills, and minimum skills? Well, we've got a format for you guys, so buckle up and let's get ready for the ride. My name is Phil Birch, aka KS Natry, and I will be going over my review of what I think is a pretty decent meta, though maybe a little bit constraining at times if you really don't know what you're looking out for. First of all, I want to break into what I think the meta turns into right now. We've got a bunch of super hyper aggro decks, and then we've got a couple of decks and symbols that are really trying to fight those pretty hard. So if you're looking for something a little bit on the easy side, um, I definitely think that you stick to your Tokiyamis, you stick to your fourth kinds. Uh, I would stick away from All Might too, but man, that guy can certainly turn somebody inside out if they're not knowing what to look for. Those are super valid decks. If you're trying to buy it, just if you're trying to win, you're trying to have a quick game, you're trying to beat up your friends at locals. Those are all decks that I think are great to test with and test against. Um, they definitely can go on the side of high rolling a bit, but particularly in Tokiyami, say there is some skill expression where you do get to kind of interact with your opponent's cards, and fourth kind getting to just ignore all of his opponent's cards is also pretty sweet as well. But if you are looking for something that I think is a little bit more on the challenging side, a little bit more of a battle of wits, a little bit more competing with your opponent rather than trying to just steamroll your opponent, then I think that there are a nice handful of decks that do fall into that niche pretty well. One of them being the life symbol decks of the meta. Meihatsume, we've got Ochako, Toga, Froppy. Personally, and this is all conjecture and opinion on my part, I believe that Toga is the best to deal with the aggro decks of the format. I believe that she offers the most in terms of seeing the cards that she needs to compete, as well as balancing yourself around a nice life gain package that can and will at times matter tremendously. Basically, though, the life symbol itself has a lot of really great tools for dealing with all of the aggro decks of the format. You have your anti-throw cards with wall cling. You have your anti-throw card with the face shield to flip their cards face down. It's good against Ochako. It's good against All Might. It's good against this, that, the other. Face shield is just a super good card for the format in staying alive. Balanced around its +3 block for sure, but it does give you a lot of outs to some of the particularly strong decks of the format. I think that if you are playing against an All Might 2 deck with a life deck, that All Might 2 deck should feel like they never stood a single chance to play the game. Your block modifiers are too good. You have too much card draw to keep up with their blocks. Your offense is good enough to compete with their offense. And you have the throw hate and the breaker to just really hold their turns down and just kind of smother them out of the game. Um, your answers into Tokiyami are pretty good as well, right? Into Tokiyami, you're looking to get yourself a little bit wider than him. That way, you can sustain yourself through good blocking. Your blocks are pretty easy to pass through cards like release, high value target. You get yourselves encouraging training partner to keep their attacks at lower speed as opposed to those triple dark shadows where they have like a 7 or 8 speed move. You get to set that back down to 4. You get to make it a little easier to block. Stuff like that. You have great answers to stun, which the Tokiyamis are switching to now these days with someone with style. Being able to both ready itself and also make their move 0 speed is incredibly powerful. But yeah, I think that this game plan works more so with Toga uh, for a couple of reasons. I think that her ability to play Ready Set Go is actually quite a bit higher than the other life characters of the set, just because of her filter draw on turns where you're not going to want to see it. Playing that card on a 4 is more risk than reward for the most part, in my opinion. If you check a 3 and tap 1, that can really be a detriment to your turn in the long run. But obviously, seeing it early means that you get to compete with the builds of the Tokiyami. Your Tokiyami builds 5, you get to respond. You get to have 2 on your turn, or on their turn. Then you get to hopefully build like 5 more, hold a couple blocks, get some really good blocking action going. Are you susceptible to being high rolled still, despite all these super nice and cool things that I just said about the deck? Absolutely. There is there's no deck in the format that is good into Tokiyami going ruin shadow, big move, big move, big move, big move, sugar rush on turn 2. Like you just dead. So those things are always going to happen. That's why Tokiyami is so strong. That's why cards like Fourth Kind also have like such a good game plan right now. Why people are so high on them, because you can just turn to your opponent without your opponent having anything they can do about it. But but once again, I do think that the life symbol has the ability to set up a stabilized board state where it will become extremely difficult for Tokiyami to break through if you can get to that turn 3, turn 4 situation, because you will have options. Like your opponent's deadlock options aren't extremely good, so you don't really have to worry about your opponent doing anything to combat your game plan of just building a million cards. The Tokiyamis are going to want to sit low. They usually are playing on 5 to 7 foundations maximum. And you can just be like, well, let me just establish this little empire of foundations that I can commit staging area terrorism on my own cards and just block everything with releases, block everything with someone with styles, stuff like that. Once again, I think Toga is the best one to do this. Froppy gets a similar game plan of being able to build big. She also gets access to Amphibious, which is something that Toga will not have access to, which is super nice into the stun decks. Ochako can do this if you want to play it as a little bit more aggressive of a deck, but you are going to be more susceptible because you will not see as many cards as these other decks. And then, Mei Hatsume is the ultimate late game queen. So if you play into a late game format, you are probably going to be able to win very easily with her. I'm a little bit more shaky on her because of how aggressive the format is, but we've seen a lot of success from Mei's recently as well. Another thing I think that people need to be looking out for are decks on the water symbol. I don't think people are going as hard on water, and I think it's strictly just because they want to try their new fun cards. But like the disappearance of Mineta was a little bit crazy to me because I think he has a lot of good game into the aggro decks of the format. And I'm not talking about all throws, like play 150 throws Mineta too. I think that is a super, super bad deck. But these decks that play like the ranged package, like Adju Duval was playing in Vegas, I think have a very good game into Tokiyami, into Fourth Kind, and stuff like that, where they actually get to play a super solid defensive game. They get to play all the best water cards, and their offense isn't as suspect. Like they can build up to a turn where they play almost like a Sue, where they just draw a lot of attacks and play a lot of frog lashings, play tongue whips, play grape brush or whatever it's called, the his throw. Just really good game plan while being able to sit behind a great defense. But saying that, I think that the actual thing that people should be playing still is Froppy Alpha Water. I know we saw one of those at the regionals. Travis did a fantastic job. That deck is very scary, and I think should be taken a little bit more seriously than it is right now. The big counter to it, and I understand people were really upset, probably really scared to play into Mineta 2 with it. I think that Mineta 2 would give you some problems. Having the extra card in your card pool means you have to build longer. And then that means he gets to build longer, and you're playing a longer game, a little bit more drawn out, a little scarier. And then obviously Face Shield really doubles down. Face Shield and Confused really double down on making your character a little bit more difficult to play than in set 1. But especially when the stadium comes out, the sports stadium, the big answers to Sue, especially in her early game, are going to be much harder to play. Like Breaker's not going to be as much of a detriment to her because she can just ready all of her cards, and also she can kick out your Breaker if that needs to be a thing too. Face shield, no longer even an issue. As soon as she gets one copy of Sports Stadium out, you're if your opponent's not playing an answer to an asset, you just don't get to play face shield anymore. It just doesn't work. You might as well review every single copy because a +3 block is not going to do anything. And honestly, all of her attacks get stronger because +1 damage on everything with that too. Yeah, that deck should be making a return to the meta, in my opinion, pretty heavily. Pretty like a big push of them coming in. I would not be surprised to see a large group of them the next time we do a top 16, 4, 5, 6 Frappies, because the deck didn't get any worse. It only got better cards. If you get struggling with studies, I think it's a fantastic card. Graceful Maneuvers is great. If you want to play Cheerful Uppercut as just a block, like that is an incredible card. Block in and also stuff your opponent's card pool, like that is a very hard thing to play around. Um, I think that the Mina support gave her just enough, and then you can also get the 0-5 Mineta Foundation for free minus speed that turns into a flip to ready your character. Just a lot of really, really nice pieces while still being able to use both modes of plus ultra. You're just a blocking machine at a certain point. You never ever have to aggress. You can always dictate pretty much whenever you want to be the person that does the damage in the game. And I think that's just a really remarkable thing that people have kind of turned a blind eye towards. In my personal experience, that matchup for Froppy into Tokiyami is extremely Froppy favored. I played Tokiyami for like 7 months leading up to set 2. I played it in the first regional, and water decks, and particularly Froppy, give them a hard time just because of their ability to sit and play defense and play very, very, very good defense. I think that the water deck is incredible into the life decks. I think that you get to play a very similar game plan to them, except for I think you have more impactful cards most of the time. Your defense is just as good, if not better. Your character is just as good, if not better, and it's really, really powerful. And the attack quality is a little higher as well with the ranged package, getting to play Frigid Heat Waves, getting to play a Breaker 2 that's a 4-diff on Ice Storm. And then, yeah, I don't think Fourth Kind gets to do anything into decks that get to play Amphibious. I think that he probably just gets washed in that matchup, but I don't know. I haven't seen that one in practice very much. Racerhead, I think, is a little bit harder for me to talk about his matchups into things because I think that is just a deck that has to be hyper. I think the player more so has to be hyper aware when to activate their effects than the deck itself. I think that Racerhead is clearly just a player driven deck. Corey did a fantastic job because that deck is extremely hard to play. So congratulations to him again on winning the regional with a Racerhead. That is an awesome, awesome accomplishment. It's not something that even I would do as an undertaking because I think the offense is so honest, but the defense is incredible. Like the offense is the most honest in the format for a top tier deck. But yeah. Besides that, man, Tokiyami, you're just playing orange cards and blue cards, and I think that's a super fun way to play the game, man. So if that's your cup of tea, stick with it. You're going to be around for a long time. You're only going to keep getting better. Fourth Kind, if you just want to not have any care for what your opponent does, dude, play a 28, 27 attack Fourth Kind deck and just build all spam foundations and then just keep attacking them with 5 attacks every turn. That is not certainly not my favorite thing to see happen. I kind of hate that character because I think he's super, super unnecessary, but that is a super cool way to play. And hey, man, if you like All Might Throws, I think that's the worst of the meta decks just because it has so many answers to it. But hey, you could definitely get there. So take it from me. That deck might show up in a top eventually, but I can't figure out how or when it's going to happen because I think that the only people playing it are like new players. It's super weird. Yeah, there we go, guys. That's my meta analysis. Hopefully, I dropped you a little bit of knowledge there. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Talk to me about what you think. Tell me I'm wrong. Give me your interpretations of these things. That's what we're here for. It's a little bit of a discussion. I, being a person whose opinion is pretty valuable, I believe, and I can always learn from you guys as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Be sure to check out my deck profile on Toga if you want to learn a little bit more about the Toga list I was playing that I think does do pretty well into these decks. Be sure to check out my Twitch streams. I will be streaming a couple days a week. Definitely before the Brewing with Butch and Bromley podcast, I will be doing the pregame brews podcast on Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. Where we're just going to shoot the shit, talk about cards, interactions, whatever you guys think, whatever you guys want to talk about. It's just going to be a really shooting the shit type situation where maybe we bring up a little bit of a topic beforehand. Other than that, dude, guys, I am out. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys soon.